It's Friday, which means it's FAQ Fridays. I'm attorney Kishore Kapoor, a residential real estate attorney here in the state of Connecticut. And I get asked a lot of the same questions from buyers, from sellers, even from real estate agents. So I figured, why not answer them all here? Because I guarantee if one person has that question, hundreds of people have that question, but are scared to ask. So drop your questions in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them in a future video. But today we're going to talk about contingencies. What are they and how do they protect you? So once you get a house that you found that you like, you put in an offer. It gets accepted. You're under contract. That's not the final step though. That's just the first step in the process. We're going to add something into those contracts. Conditions, right? Conditions to close. Those conditions are considered contingencies. Think of them as a legal exit. If something goes wrong, you have a way to get off the highway and get your deposit back. And it also gives you options. Maybe you don't want to get your deposit back and you want to use it as a source to negotiate. It's an option. There are about 6 main ones that we see in most of the contracts. A couple of them don't apply in every situation. So I'm going to go through the first 4 that apply in most situations, and then the 2 that are less common but still important. Your inspection contingency. And don't worry, pay attention to the end because you'll learn about all of these. Your financing contingency or your mortgage contingency. Your title contingency and your appraisal contingency. Those are the 4 contingencies that should be in every contract if you're buying a house with a mortgage. The 2 that are a little bit less common but still come up are a sale of a home, right? It's also called the Hubbard Clause, and then a Condo Association Contingency. So let's get started with the home inspection contingency. The name says it all. It gives you a chance to go through the house and get the house looked at. But this isn't something you're doing with yourself. You're going to go hire a professional, and they're going to go through the house to look to make sure there's no major issues. Right? You've gone through the house, you've seen it, it suits all your needs. You may have seen, the oddly painted wall, you may see a leaking sink. Those are things you can see, but you're not professional. You're not looking at the roof to see if there's damage. You're not looking if the electrical is up to code or if there's any errors with the electrical. That's where your contingency is going to come in. It's going to allow you to go through the house with a professional. They're going to point out the little things that you're not looking at, a cracked seal for a window that means it's leaking air. Which is not uncommon in the state of Connecticut. But most houses have an issue, right? They're not brand new houses. So a home inspector is going to go through and look at the house and point out all of those problems to you. And then you're going to go back to the seller and say, okay, I want money. I want you to repair it. I want to walk away. That's an option to you, right? And you're not buying a house blind. I have people that waive this contingency. If you're buying your first home, I think it's bad advice. The reason is some of these issues can cost you thousands of dollars of expenses that are completely going to cripple you if you just bought your first house. So be sure to have an inspection. The next one is your mortgage contingency. Keep in mind, if you buy a house in cash and you have that kind of money, this doesn't apply to you. You don't need to worry about it. But if you're not, you need to get a mortgage approval, because I don't know about you, but I don't have a couple $100,000 sitting around to buy a house. So it allows you to buy a house with as low as 3.5% to 5% down. There are programs that can get you down to 0%, but I'm not a mortgage professional. I just know basics. But this is going to be the chance for you to get an approval for a mortgage. You went to a mortgage broker, you got a pre-approval that says you could qualify up to, let's say, $300,000. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to get $300,000 because a pre-approval is doing a very basic look into your credit history, right? We're looking at maybe your income and your credit history. They're not digging into things in a deeper level. And a lot can happen during closing, right? We've had clients that have quit their jobs. COVID happened, people lost their jobs, somebody bought a car, right? Those things affect you. So the mortgage company wants to make sure you're going to be able to afford to pay off this mortgage. So they're going to go back and look at your entire financial history, looking at how much money you make, how much debt you have, if your credit score is good or bad, because that shows if you can pay your bills, or if you, not if you can pay your bills, but if you pay your bills, and if you pay your bills on time. But let's say you don't get approved for a mortgage, right? That allows you to get out under the mortgage contingency without losing your deposit, which is key. I don't want to lose a penny of your money if we don't have to. That's what the mortgage contingency does. It's a safety net to keep you safe through the process in the event that your mortgage is denied. The next big contingency is the appraisal contingency. And everyone's thinking, yeah, well, I have a mortgage contingency. Maybe I don't need the appraisal contingency. Well, the appraisal contingency is important because what it does is looking at the value of the house, right? So let's say you put an offer on a house for $500,000 and the house only appraises at $400,000. I don't know about you, but I don't want to overpay for something I don't have to. If you don't have an appraisal contingency, you might be stuck trying to close on this house because you might be approved for a mortgage. You might have $100,000 in the bank, $150,000 in the bank, and the bank says, yeah, you're approved, right, at a lower loan amount. If you don't have the appraisal contingency, okay, well, now you might get stuck buying a house that you didn't want to overpay for. So the appraisal contingency outlines the ability for you to come back and negotiate, say, hey, the house is worth less than what we agreed to. It allows you to say, we're going to renegotiate. Some people put in an appraisal cap that just says this is going to be the amount of money we cover in the event that the house doesn't appraise. So in our example, the $500,000 house, and it appraised at $400,000, you might have said, listen, I'll have an appraisal gap of $25,000. Well, that $25,000 appraisal gap means you're going to pay $25,000 above the appraised value. It makes the seller happy. It may make you happy getting the house, knowing you're getting still somewhat of a deal, not a great deal, but that's what the appraisal contingency does. It allows you to back out and renegotiate. Title contingency. This is probably the most important contingency. It's not actually written out and something you will find in a contract, but it is a standard part of the contract. It's not given a time frame. It's not actually written as that way. What it's written as is the seller needs to provide good title. What that means is they need to provide a deed to you that nobody else has a claim to, nobody else can say they have an interest in. It will be your house. And we're going through here under the title contingency to make sure that there's no liens, there's no prior owners, there's no errors in the land records, there's no boundary line fights, there's no lawsuits, there's no issues with the title or your ownership. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to inherit somebody else's legal problems. And that is what it does. It gives us an ability to back out because we find out somebody else has legal problems that are affecting their property. And this is the one that's closest to my heart because this is my main job as your closing attorney, is to make sure you have good title. Now, I promise there are two others that don't always apply. So the Hubbard or the sale of the home contingency. What that is you have money, but it's tied up in another house. So you want to sell your house first and then come back and use the funds from that sale to purchase your new house. But you don't want to lose the deal because your house doesn't close, or lose your deposit because your house doesn't close. And you also may not have listed your house, right? But you don't want to lose this deal. So we put something in called a Hubbard or sale of home contingency. And this basically protects you so that if you're trying to sell your current home and either it doesn't sell or it's delayed or the buyer backs out and you need to get another deal, you're still protected and you can back out under your current contract. Even if you're not there in that 100%, we have some protection under the mortgage contingency because you probably will not qualify to carry two houses, right? Unless you do and you don't want to, and that's a different story. But that is a great contingency. Sellers don't always love it, but it's there to protect you, right? So just know it might be a little bit harder, to get an offer accepted because sellers are cautious then. And the last one only applies if you're buying a condo. And if you're buying a condo or a co-op or something called a PUD, which is a planned unit development, kind of your HOA situations, you get time to review the financials, to review the rules, sometimes the meeting minutes, and I say sometimes because they're a little bit harder to get. Any pending assessments, what are the dues that are coming up, any special assessments, and then if there's any strict rules about renovation and rentals, you're going to look at time to look at those. State law protects you from that, right? State law says you have a certain number of days, and it's 5 in most situations, 5 and 7, but typically 5. It gives you a chance to review everything because in a sense, you're buying into a business if you want to think of it that way, right? The business is the Condo Association. You own a piece of the Condo Association. So if there's bills that need to be paid that end up costing you as a homeowner, you need to be aware of that, right? If they say they're going to replace the roof, you as the homeowner of that condo have to pay a portion of that roof, just like everybody else in it, right? So keeping that in mind, you're going to want to look at the budget. You're going to want to look at what's coming in. We help with that, but we can't tell you if the condo documents are something you're going to be comfortable with. That's a personal decision. So a recap, these contingencies are there to protect you. They're not there to scare sellers. They're not scared to sell you. You're not trying to make things and trap somebody in a bad deal. They're there to get you out of a bad deal. A good attorney, a good real estate agent will help you get through the process and tell you which ones make sense for your given situation. And as always, drop a comment below with one of your questions. I do read them every single one of them. I will try to answer them in the next week's episode. And if you found this information useful, be sure to follow us because I share stories from my clients' real life experiences so you can learn from them and avoid some of the stresses my clients went through.